by way of introduction, what we're going to focus on today, of course, is project and portfolio management. And it'll revolve around request projects and portfolios, as we'll see in a couple of minutes. And then how we put this together is kind of interesting. We've been working, some of you may know, we've been working and have an active product in market for many, many years called BrightWork. And it is on the SharePoint platform. And it's a template-based approach to project management. So what we did was we leaned on that experience. We looked into Microsoft 365, where there was SharePoint, but there was also Teams and other goodies, if you like, including the Power Platform. And we said, instead of building something in Microsoft 365 just on SharePoint, can we take all of what's in Microsoft 365 and use the best pieces to build a project and portfolio management system? So that's what we'll be looking at today. Now, over the many years, as it says there, the 27, which is why the hair is gray at this stage, we've learned a lot working with our customers. And one of the things we've learned is that organizations that try to put in way too much project management initially, suffer from a bit of overload, if you like. So what we advocate is a kind of a crawl, walk, run, start, evolve approach. And that can be different for different organizations, what it means. But in a generic sense, it would be put in a reasonable amount of project management to start with across all projects and give your senior management visibility into what's going on. Even if all projects aren't great, at least you'll know what project is doing well and not well. And then gradually evolve the project management over time. So in the demo, which I'm about to start, we'll show the project management solution on Microsoft 365, but we'll do it through the lens of Start Evolve, because I think you might find that interesting. All right, so let me exit the demo. I'll just turn off my webcam so we're not distracted. And now you should be seeing, and you are seeing indeed my screen. So if I were to give you an overview of the what, this diagram I think is very helpful. It's requests for new projects, the resulting projects from those requests, and then those projects grouped into portfolios and programs. Now, you don't have to start with the requests, but you have that option to do it. So it's a kind of a logical flow. And the request projects and portfolios all driven by templates that we ship out of the box that you can configure and change, of course, yourselves as well. If we were to kind of go down the next level of detail on the what, we could use the navigation on the left. So under the home link would be my work. So what do I have to do to help our projects? And then I would have dashboards. So dashboards would be, how are we doing across our projects? So my work is basically, what have I got to do? And the dashboards, how are we as a team doing? Requests then would be the request for new projects. So I can see my requests here. And we'll go into this in a bit more detail later, but it's the actual request for a project if you're doing it in that formal way. Projects, of course, would be the resulting projects. So I can see my projects, late projects, early projects, and so on. And then if I just click into one, you'll see an example of a project. And we'll go through this in a bit more detail, status and Gantt and my work and risks and issues. And then what we can do is, if we keep going down the navigation, just looking at some of it with this notion of a portfolio, and you can have one or more portfolios, and this Contoso portfolio has a number of programs in it, and this marketing program has the number of projects in it, and then I can click into the project and so on. So to summarize, I'll go back to this diagram here. You've got the option to have requests for new projects, the actual projects themselves, and those rolled into programs and portfolios, and all that driven by templates. So if you look down the bottom left, we can scoot into the templates area, which we'll cover in a bit of detail a little bit later. So requests, projects, portfolios, underpinned by templates, and they're kind of the essential elements of a classic project and portfolio management system. So as Michal said, if you have questions, do take note of them and pop them on the stack, and we'll be delighted to cover them. The more questions, the better. So if we're to go to the next level of detail in looking at this, I said we might look at it through the lens of start, evolve. So, and I mentioned that each organization might start in a different place. So your context is all different. So therefore your starting point will be different. So how do you judge the right starting point? Well, you know, if I go back to this diagram, which we would have seen in a slightly different form on a slide a couple of minutes ago, we have the start evolve approach, but that's surrounded by the project management success strategy. So we have a simple but clear approach to work through with you on that, and our team, our customer success partners, will work with you and we'll come up with the project management success strategy, and that's something you can lean on and go back and update. So rather than being a haphazard thing, put in the software, turn the knobs, hope everything works, it's really about your project management success. And that strategy is executed in a start, evolve manner, would be our approach. So having said that, you know, your start depends on your context. Let me give you an example of a start. So I'll call out 3 items that you might do, and we'll show them in a minute. You might start with a project light. So mightn't be a massive amount of project management, but you could get a lot, if not all, projects up and running on that pretty quickly. So if you don't burden people with a massive amount of project management, you can get a lot of projects up in a fast manner. And that really is focusing a lot on your project managers to begin with. Second thing you might do in a start is focus on the team members on the projects and drive them to my work. From those projects, here's the work you've got to do. And then the third area is you might focus on the senior managers and give them a start with the portfolios and the programs. So let me kind of bring you through each of those 3. So for example, if I go into my projects and I look at this particular project, new consultant team onboarding, you can see that it has a charter, or it's like a statement of work. What is the project meant to achieve? And obviously you can configure this. There's then, if that's what it's meant to do, the project, the charter, then there's the status. Where is the project at? And then this can be updated and consulted at any point in time. So you have things like progress, start date, and comments, you know, and health costs, some of the classic indicators for a project, and then the ability to, of course, add comments to explain why they're in that particular state. The team roster, who's on the project, that gets automatically updated once you assign people work, or you can just add people to the project here in this manner. There's the actual schedule, or the work breakdown structure, or the set of tasks, which we'll cover a little bit later, and we'll kind of go into a bit more detail on it. And then perhaps you have my work, a place where you show the people on the project the work they have to do for this particular project. maybe a place to store documents. And that's really about as much as you might have in a project light. If you're the project manager, you'd have access to the settings area where you have options to configure things and change things. And if you wished to push the project through an approval process, from stage A to B to C, from initiate to plan, you'd have an approvals area. But mainly what you probably want to do is, have a light start to project management that's easy to consume. Because the alternative is you kind of come with a perfect project management process with every bell and whistle, and it's hard to get everybody to deploy it, and then your senior managers don't have great visibility on what's going on. But if you put in charter status, just those two, and maybe a work breakdown structure, set of tasks, even if it's a small number, with that you go a long way, because that will drive the second part, which is my work. So here's something that's visual and actionable. So this is my work across all the projects, or this is my work that's actually completed, or my work all. So if I go back to my work open and I open an issue here, then this, without having to go into the project, I get access to the issue that I'm asked to deal with, that I'm on point to deal with, and I can click in here and I have full access to it. If I'm responsible for a task on a project, so I can click this one here, and then I can say, you know what, I'm a good way through this. I do save. And when I go back to my work, this one is now colored in progress, and if I mark it complete, then it will be gone off the open work list, and it'll be on the all work list. Okay, so that's the second thing you might want to do in the start, is give people easy access to all the work they've got to do and make it easy for them to update it. Make it my work visual and actionable. Third thing you might want to do in a start is maybe you want to you definitely want to give senior management access to the dashboards, but maybe you want to do it with the simple Power Apps dashboards to begin with. So in this scenario, for example, I've got projects by health, by status, projects by sponsor, by project manager. So for example, I can click here into this one, and it brings me to this particular chart exposed, and then I click on just the red ones, and I see the projects that are in danger. So I've got, without resorting to Microsoft Power BI, which I'll come on to in a second, there are a lot of dashboards here that will allow you to drill into good information. So a start might be, as I say, a light template for projects to begin with that absolutely has the basics. Get a lot of projects up and running on that. Doesn't mean they're all going to be in great shape, but at least you'll know where they are. You'll have charter status and so on. My work for the team members and for the senior managers to give them some dashboards. And you get that out quickly, because nothing builds on success like success. And obviously to get momentum, from your physics, you have to have some movement. So this allows you move quickly and get momentum. And then the question then becomes, well, if that's your start, what might your first evolve be? And of course, the answer is, it depends on your context and your project management success strategy. So on your own or with our customer success partner, you'd go back to that, and we use a Microsoft PowerPoint deck for it, easy to communicate with. You go back to that strategy and you say, how much of it did we do? Has our context changed? what is it we should do next, and then you set up the next run at project management. You set up the evolve. In this case, it will be the first evolve. So again, let me give you an example of 3 things it might be. And again, I'll just summarize the 3 and then demo them. So you might decide to introduce a project standard, which is another template with more project management than Project Light. So it's Project Light plus a bunch of stuff that we'll see in a second. And the idea of the Project Light standard and structured is that they're generic project management approaches that can suit lots of projects. You know, it's a question of, do you have risks and issues or not, as we'll see in a minute, that kind of stuff. But then the second thing you might want to do in this evolve is you might want to look at some of your projects where there are very specific and different additional needs. So say, for example, you might want to introduce a new product introduction, which of course will require all the basics of project management, but there will be some extra requirements and different processes for that kind of project. And thirdly, in your evolve, you might want to mature the projects and portfolio management approach for your senior execs, and maybe introduce the Power BI dashboards. So let's go through those. So if I go back into my project and I look at this particular project, deploy marketing automation. Again, it's a standard approach to project management: initiate, plan, execute, and then close out your project. But if you look up top, we now have status reports added, which I'll cover in a second. We have actions and issues. So basically, we're adding more project management. Now, these are all, of course, out of the box, and you just decide which to show and which to hide in the different templates that you use. So essentially, you've got more project management here. Now, why wouldn't you have actions and issues and risks and costs and communications to begin with? It just might be too much for people, and you don't want them to be suffering from project management indigestion. So to look at some of these, so you've already seen status. So status, health comment. And if I turn this project to yellow, and I just say, whoops, not doing so well. Now, obviously, it'd be something a little bit more. And then if I say the cost is red, and I just say large cost overrun. So basically, I'm updating the status, and I can do that at any particular point in time. In fact, it's a good thing to do to come back to the project, look at the status, update it. It's good for the project manager to get into that headspace. Where are we? Now, the idea of the status report then is, and I can say we're a third way through the project status-wise. So these are the status. This is the status of the project. So I can click status report. I can do new status report. And what it's doing is it's capturing the status that I just updated, or the current status, dates, indicators, comments, all that out to the right. And then I can say, for which period is this ending? So like I'm out at the end of the week, so I'm saying it's really for the end of this week. Key accomplishments, obviously you'd put in something more intelligible there. Lots of significant changes, many. Upcoming focus, some. So you'd put something in there. So now, do you want to email this report to the sponsor? Yeah, and the sponsor will be named. You could say yes. Do you want to add additional people to send it to? Like I think Niall's been asking me about this, so I'll include Niall on it. And at this stage, am I ready to complete this report? And I say yes, and then it's completed. And this particular status report then is now on the stack. So if we look on top, this status report has been saved so that we have a list of all the status reports. That email there, that Bing you might have heard, was the status report coming into my email and to whoever else I would send it to. So you get a sense here that there's more project management, I mean, other stuff that's in here would be Microsoft Teams integration. So you have the option as a project manager to create a channel by just pushing a button in settings. You know, it's already done, which is why it's great. I'll create a Teams channel, and then people will be able to access this same project from Microsoft Teams. So there I'm clicking in Microsoft Teams, which a lot of people like to hang out in, and I'm seeing the latest status and the latest status report and so on. Other things you'd notice here, you know, is you're using SharePoint to manage the documents. So you upload your documents, you single click on one of them, and you can edit, delete, check in, check out. So you still have access to all the power of SharePoint or SharePoint Online. So that's maybe one thing you do, is introduce that kind of a project. A second thing you might do in your Evolve, if I go back and I get to my projects this way, oops, sorry, no, the second thing we want to do is we want to look at the new product introduction project. So I go back home, click my projects, and then I look at this other project, which is frozen desserts for South Africa. So what we're talking about here is a different kind of a project where there's a business case, then it goes to development of the product, then scale, then launch. So you get the sense of different items at play, and then therefore different things in the charter. So it's your standard project management with start, middle, and end, of course, risks and issues. In fact, if you see here, we've got issues, risks, costs, communications. So we've got more project management from the out-of-the-box stuff. And the idea here is that you're instantiating a particular type of project for a business process that you have. In this case, it happens to be product introduction, new product introduction. So if I look here at the Gantt, I said we'd have a closer look at this. We've got the green line, which is the today line. If I click the baseline, you know, so this shows me that I'm pretty much, the project is pretty much on track to the original baseline. It's pretty easy to change. If I turn off the baseline and then I start changing some of this stuff, and then I can actually go in here and I can change more of it here. This is 10% and so on, and add resources. So it's pretty easy to kind of work with. Now, if I click my baseline, I see I've deviated from the original baseline or the original plan. So I can interact with the Gantt in that way. There's expand all, collapse all, you know, there's kind of a toolbar up here. I can also drag this splitter across, and then I've got a grid that I can play with and update. So, you know, the aforementioned Nile will make Nile responsible for this particular stage. And we do that on the grid. So there are kind of changes made on the fly. So we were saying there's three things you might do in this Evolve. You know, the first was introduce a project standard, which is more project management, maybe a new product introduction or a specific process. And the third thing you might want to do is maybe in this Evolve, you decide, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out the Power BI attractive executive dashboards. Some of you folks may already have the Power BI licenses. So then, you know, you say for, you know, these are, you know, all the projects managed by Anne, or all the projects that are not started, so I can see what's going on with them. Projects of a certain type and so on. And then I can click here and so on. I've got projects to there across money projects. If I want to see just a dashboard for one project, that's a project we looked at a couple of minutes ago. So there's the dashboard for it. Projects timeline, project tasks, you know, a view of all the work across all the projects. So, you know, there's a work by type, project deliverables, cost issues, or by person and so on. And then there are other dashboards like my work and project document dashboard. So that could be your second evolve. That could be your second evolve. Now, your third evolve, sorry, that was your first evolve, wasn't it? It was like your second twist. You did a start, consolidated, and then you evolved. And maybe you want to evolve again. So again, the question is, how do you figure what to evolve? Of course, it depends on your context, and you go back to that project management success strategy, and our customer success partner will be delighted to help you with that. See what's working, what's not working, what value you still want to extract as per your project management success strategy. So maybe your third twist of the wheel, which in this case is your second evolve, maybe there's three things you do. Maybe at this stage you introduce requests. So maybe you say, look, we have a lot of projects up and running, but from now on, any project that's considered needs to go through a request governance process. So that could be one. Maybe the second thing you want to do is go to more project and portfolio management, maybe resource utilization, we'll look at it in a second. And the third thing you might want to do is get into the templates area and build out different request types for different project types, and maybe build out other project types and templates for those. So looking at requests, if I click requests and I click close requests, and maybe I can find what I'm looking for, and if not, I just do a search and I click, so I find the original request for the frozen desserts project, that NPI, new product introduction one. So this is the request that led to the project. So you see here, there's a request form, the idea details. Again, you would configure this, of course, from our out-of-the-box ones. And here you have things like the description, the target customer, the need, the source of the idea, and so on, and any associated documents. So you essentially have a form to capture what it is required. Second tab then are the details, any details of that would govern the resulting project, So is it for this portfolio, this program, do we know who the project manager is? If you don't know them, you don't know them. But if you do, they can go into the request details and they'll be used to create the project. Then if there's an approval, we actually, in our recent release, we introduced 0 approvals. But in this case, you've got the request goes from draft to accepted, to reviewed, to approved. You can see that down here. And you can see that you have different people lined up to be approvers and reviewers, and different information that will be passed to them, and whether the stage from draft to accepted or accepted to reviewed is manually started by an approvals coordinator, or do you want it to automatically flow? You can kind of configure all that kind of stuff. And then there's the history of the actual request itself. Now, if you hadn't picked this up, there's obviously this request is a key part of the solution. And we have a request app. And that request app can be used by anybody in your organization with a free license, no cost. So they can request projects, and then they can come into your project and portfolio hopper, so to speak. So that could be the first thing you do in the second evolve. The second thing you might want to do is introduce more dashboards. You'd be getting requests from people. And maybe in this case, we're looking at resource utilization as an example. So if I click here, I see the folks that are within the scope. We'll talk about that in a second of this report, resource utilization report. And we can see that, this is June, July. And of course, I could make this 3 weeks and it's just June, or I could make it 13 weeks and it goes June, July, August, September, and so on. Now, the red obviously indicates that the person is over allocated. The gray is that they're in a safe zone, and the green is that they're on the margin. You know, they're allocated 100%. You certainly don't want to go any further. And sometimes people keep this data accurate, and sometimes they don't. But at least what you can do is you can start drilling into it and having a look at it and say, Alex is over allocated there in July, but I see what it is. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that because it's not a real over allocation because I know what's happening in that project. Or maybe I am worried about it and I do something about it, you know. And then I can go down a level and it goes to weeks. So, but I don't want to see 13 weeks. Maybe I just want to see 3 weeks. So we've got June 5th to 11th and so on. So it calls out the weeks, and I can see more detail here. And then I can actually go down and I can drill down to the days as well. And I could see for the next 2 weeks and just see the days and see what kind of loading there is and there isn't. And here, you know, on the right-hand side, I can just focus on one person. Down the bottom, I have the projects, so I can kind of click and link into those projects myself. And these, as I change the time frame and the scope, like for example, if I look at the filters, so is it all portfolios or just the Contoso one? That would change things. And is it all programs, or maybe I just want to look at the marketing one, and that will change the scope. So I can filter and change the scope of what I'm looking at, or just look across a number of projects and a number of people and so on. So got quite a lot of flexibility there. I also have the ability to, you know, go focus mode, go full screen on this, do different sorts and so on. I can also open this in Power BI. This is embedded in the app at the moment. If I open it in Power BI, you know, I get some interesting options like export to Microsoft PowerPoint and to PDF and so on. So I can do an export there. If you see in the top left, export to PowerPoint, embed as an image, embed live data, export to PDF, and other options there as well. I could also open this in Power BI desktop and do the configurations and make changes to it as well. So maybe that's something I want to do. And then lastly on our Evolve, you know, we said maybe we would do requests in this Evolve, introduce that bit of governance, maybe amp up the portfolio reporting with resource utilization. And then maybe we go into the templates area. Maybe that's the third thing we do. And maybe we set up different request templates to suit the different kind of requests we want. You know, so there you can kind of see the things you can configure here. You know, what form do you want to use to collect the data? What's the business process flow? And we saw initiate, plan, track, and business case, launch, and so on. So you can have different business process flows and configure who the approvers are, the reviewers. And if you don't know those, they can be changed, of course, as you're executing. And then different project templates. You know, so there's the demo template. And if you want to have approvals, maybe you want approvals, maybe you don't want approvals, and what type of, you know, what type of governance you want for this particular project. So that may be your third. So if I were to summarize then, it's requests, projects, and portfolios. And you can see there's, hopefully you can see there's quite a lot in the software. And then what you want to do is probably want to start Evolve to suit the context you're in. And there were some examples I gave for the start and the first and the second Evolve. I kind of gave maybe 3 things you might want to do in each as an example. It was a good way to kind of walk through the software and emphasize the start Evolve approach. Now, of course, there's a very extensive knowledge base with everything from deployments to upgrades to getting started and so on. And in terms of assistance, and of course also in terms of assistance, we are very happy and would be privileged to accompany you on your journey, your start evolve journey. And we can use that as a kind of an on-the-job coaching, mentoring, and training, of course, as well. And the idea is that you get to control the project management success strategy, and that drives the efforts and our collaboration in any ways that we might help you. So there's the knowledge base, and then there's the services to accompany you on your journey to project management success and evolve success.